You know, it's funny you say that because, like, even with me, you know, I just felt like, you know, we got to go to some kind of drastic measure, you know, when shootings going on. I mean, I even said on the air, you know, I don't say things behind people's back. I said, man, let's bring in the National Guards. Because maybe I'm off base, but I'm like, we got 70,000 residents, and we know 10% of that is 7,000. And we know 7,000 people, in my estimation, not walking around with illegal guns.
No.
Not in the city of Wilmington. Then we break that down to 10% of that is like 700. And I'm not sure, and I'm like, wow, why can't we just go after this minute 2% that's making it look bad for everybody? Am I off base with that? Is it hard to
you're not off base, because we can walk into some statistics recently that we have.
So now you make me look like I'm smart.
You are. I don't have to make you look like that. You are. Since 2011, the beginning of 2011, we charted the people that we arrested for shooting someone. So they used a firearm, shot someone, and injured them. 45 people. 33 of those 45 that we arrested for shooting someone and injuring them were pretty much considered habitual criminals, career criminals, and with gun charges, numerous gun charges, thousands of charges on the record.
Wow.
And the frustration comes out in the community thinking, well, how could he have done that to my brother? How could he have done that in my neighborhood? Well, pretty much the police department's well aware of it, because all those arrests came from activity with the police department. So we're losing it somewhere as to why aren't the most violent in jail. You know, we've made 17 murder arrests since the beginning of 2011. 16 of those 17, they all had criminal histories, extensive criminal histories. But what's alarming is that 16 of those 17 arrested for homicides here in the city of Wilmington had gun charges on their record. So it means they were caught with a weapon, they've shot someone else before with that weapon.
Wow.
And as to, they're back out there still reoffending until, unfortunately, it results in a homicide.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you kind of solidified what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Let me put it.
And they're the facts. I'm not trying to minimize it.
No.
Because sometimes it's hard, because you have sensitivity issues with the many families have been hurt.
And let me also. I didn't want to cut you off. Have you shot anyone? I mean, have you went out and said, okay, I'm gonna go in one of these neighborhoods and kill somebody?
Never.
I mean, I say that sarcastically, because a lot of times people like the chief. You can't. And I think the guys. I had some guys from the neighborhood, Wolfie and those guys, they kind of solidified what you said. I mean, some stuff got to come from the families. And I think you were saying some of that.
Yes.
Let me ask you another question, because I almost went off. I also heard something about the deployment plan they have in, is it North Carolina? Or is it South Carolina?
Well, it's not a deployment plan. It's a program that they have down there, getting involved with bringing the most violent in their community. They're on probation, and say, hey, this has to stop. But it's not just the police department walking in there. You have the prosecutors, you have community members, you have clergy coming in there. That's the part that we went down there to see how's that working. There's other elements I like to implement here. Some I don't have any control over. For example, in that town that you're talking about, their probation, if you're on probation as an adult, not a juvenile, as an adult, your curfew time is 6 p.m. There's some provisions made for if you're working, and hopefully while those people are working, they get provisions like that. But if you're not working, your curfew time is 6 p.m. We ready to accept that here? So you see the drop there. So we're just trying to adopt best practices. It wasn't a silver bullet to come up here and bring that up here and say, hey, this is going to solve it all. We looked at what was going on in East Orange, New Jersey with some of their technology. We've been assisted. We have some funding coming in from the general.
East Orange would definitely know all the killings they got up there.
Well, they've gained control of it, but there are some other factors I saw where we won't have that happening here, like vacant blocks. They're a much smaller city than ours. We looked at what's going on in Providence. We've been with Baltimore. Baltimore was doing a similar operation with looking at who are your serious repeat offenders, and that's where the focus could be. Because you just mentioned, well, we take it down to 1%, 700 people. It's actually less than 1%
I believe
that
that
are wreaking the havoc in our community.
I believe that.
Some of our problems are homegrown here in the city, and some aren't. About 30% of the issues are going to be from folks from outside the city, maybe just outside of Newcastle County, but 70% is a homegrown problem, about 30% where we see the statistics with our arrests are coming from outside. So.
I believe that. Ladies and gentlemen, if you just tuned in, you're listening to the conversation with the Chief of Police, and we're going to open the phone lines up. And also I want to congratulate Duffy for another great event. Frank Nitty, the guy, stuff that you guys are doing. There's so many people who are doing a lot of good stuff in the community. We talk about everybody doing the bad stuff, but I mean, Sean, all you guys are doing so much good stuff. Try and put the phone number up there. We'll start taking some phone calls.
And I'd like to comment. I participated in that last night. That is, down there at Frawley Stadium is what is the Wilmington that folks should see. You know, for what Duffy and his group, and it's just not Duffy alone, I know that, but you know, what he did to organize that for, you know, a 2-day event for the youth. The celebrities he had in there, no one walked out without a picture or autograph. It was a great event.
Do you think, because I heard you say something earlier, are you frustrated with some of the judges when they don't sentence these guys hard enough?
No, the judges have a tough job, and I can't dictate from, you know, my office as chief of police. There are some times where I think that maybe we could present a better, I guess,
We opened the
better.
phone.
Yeah, there are sometimes I think where we could present ourselves better at bail hearings and so forth to be able to demonstrate to that judiciary as to what the existing problem is, and we're doing that too through cooperation with the Attorney General's office for some of our high-profile violence cases, to have a deputy right in that courtroom when there's the bail hearing to be able to represent the police, because sometimes the police aren't trained as prosecutors, they're trained as cops, and they do a good job at that, but sometimes it helps out the prosecutor.
How you doing? Welcome to the show.
How you doing? My question is for Chief Szczerba. The High Point area, that's the area that you're talking about that you went to visit in North Carolina to try to use that program that they're using?
That's correct, to see if there's anything from that program we could adapt here in Wilmington.
Yeah, will you be using that program here?
Yes, we have. We've had one notification meeting with cooperation with the probation department for the state of Delaware. We had those probationers in with a influential member, whether that be a family member or a minister, to come into the room and be able to present with the community, standing with the police department, is to express we're fed up, offer some services that maybe they haven't taken advantage of before, maybe never offered before, and to be able to make that turn. And some have made that turn, some have not. Unfortunately, they'll end up in the arrest column, or even worse than that, they'll end up as their next homicide victim. We want to make a change. That's why we had family members in there, so it wasn't just talking to the probationers. And we'll be doing that again. We worked with the federal probation department in their version of that notification, and you know, we'll be moving forward with that probably 3 or 4 times a year. We're also focusing on those serious repeat offenders for what we can do on the law enforcement end, but we know it's not all just on the law enforcement end. There has to be some other entities in that with probation and the community at large.
Okay, thank you.
Just one more question, please.
You're good.
Will there be a curfew submitted for us to be off the streets? Because if you're going to use that type of program, then will we be using the curfew?
There is a
Good question.
There is a present curfew for those 17 and under. The curfew I was mentioning was for probationers, not for the general public, but for the probationers. The probationers already do have a curfew, but not as early as they have down there as 6 p.m. We have Operation Safe Streets. It's our detectives working with probation and parole, and we do about 250 curfew checks of adult probationers a month here in the city. Got about a 70% compliance rate, which is pretty good. Well, that's actually very good. Most months it's in the 60 percentile range, and it, you know, just goes to show you that the impact that, you know, maybe I'll get checked on a curfew, where it's turned into now that I will get checked for a curfew.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hold for 1 second. Before I take this next call, let me ask you another question. When Councilwoman Walsh was asking for the FOIA request for like some of the officers, what kind of money they make and overtime and all that kind of stuff, is that like a union issue? Do you get involved with that?
No, I don't. That wasn't a union issue. It was a police officer's Bill of Rights issue, how it was interpreted. The city solicitor did the right thing to get an opinion from the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General's office, the deputy who researched that, gave the opinion out that it should be released.
Why would that be secretive, though? Why would someone be secretive about that?
In the police officer's Bill of Rights, which is in the Delaware code, it states that, I can't quote it exactly, but it's saying financial information of police officers or their investigation should not be released. So at this point, I know this wasn't an investigation, but it was an inquiry.
Gotcha.
So would take the risk of violating it by making that judgment in haste with putting that out, do the proper thing, do the research, and we got our answer back, and then we'll comply with it.
How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Chief. Good afternoon. The reason that I'm calling is because I don't think we need to go to different states to resolve our problem. As far as our community race relations, you could get some of the older retired City of Wilmington police officers that had a rapport with the citizens of Wilmington. As far as our policing tactics, you can go right to Ellesmere and bring those patrol officers in, and they can tell you how to set up radar and how to curb a lot of the violence that we're having, because they don't have that much violence and everybody's scared to go into Ellesmere. So maybe we ought to bring those officers in and see if they can help us out. At this point in time, with all of the problems we're having, we need to look right here in the state with the officers that we have and the ones that we've had retire and use those tools in order to resolve the problems. I'll hang up and listen to the chief.
Thank you.
It's already being done here. No one runs more checkpoints, does more speed enforcement operations, does more DUI enforcement. You're thinking with the DUI enforcement, you're thinking about the Delaware State Police and Newcastle County. The highest arrest totals here in the City of Wilmington. So we already do that. If Ellesmere's doing something that I'm not aware of, and they're successful with it, I can adapt that, but I think we have other towns in Delaware looking as to what we're doing. I know Dover's looking at it.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to use Ellesmere as an example. I think they're crooks. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
How you doing? I want to know if there's a homicide division in the Wilmington PD.
There isn't a homicide division, but there is a criminal investigations division. It's staffed by 2 capable platoons of detectives. There's a captain that oversees that, so essentially every detective assigned in there is a homicide investigator.
Is that normal, a police department not having a homicide division?
Yes. You may have some of your larger cities, or Philadelphia, I think they have a homicide unit, some other cities, but we have a criminal investigations division, and they do a great job at what they do, and so each officer in there is capable of handling a homicide. Now granted, when an officer is new, as an investigator newly assigned to that unit, he or she wouldn't be picking up a homicide or first day there. However, they work with experienced investigators, gain that experience, and somewhere along the line they will be able to handle a homicide investigation. So no, we do not have a quote homicide unit, but we have a complete division of homicide investigators.
How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hi, this is Phil Wolford calling for Police Chief Szczerba.
Go ahead.
Many of us have been advocating for strengthening community-based organizations, such things as the outreach piece of the Hope Commission or the DRC, Delaware Reentry Consortium piece of IADAPT, and strengthening them also means funding. But we hear nothing from the police department that says these types of organizations need to be funded. And I just wondered what the police chief's response to that was.
Okay, hold on for a second. What's your response?
A great investment for working for reentry. I think again, but I spoke earlier about balance, but not in this issue of reentry, but we need to balance the reentry with pre-entry. And that's what I'm talking about with our education system. So not all the emphasis should be placed on reentry.
Do we put enough money into prevention or some of the things like Cy was talking about?
It doesn't fall under the realm of law enforcement. I know we feel the effects of that with people constantly turning over in the system with the revolving door. Would greatly assist our community safety-wise if folks could make that turn. That's essentially what we're talking about. Safe communities, Wilmington safe communities. We were talking about bringing the probationers in and saying, hey, here's a group of community members that are fed up. The police department's fed up. Make a change for yourself. That's essentially, although they're out, we didn't bring them from being in custody. When they walked in there, they walked in that probation officer in that probation office on their own. But that's sort of a pre-entry issue to where, hey,